Well, joining me now via webcam from Dublin is the CEO of the airline Ryanair, Michael O'Leary. Is this a historic day?
Well, good afternoon, Simon. Certainly it's historic in the sense that the UK government has finally made a half decision, which at least is some progress. Unfortunately, they've made the wrong decision. They've awarded another runway to the Spanish-owned Heathrow monopoly, which will significantly increase costs and dramatically increase airfares at Heathrow, because this monopoly will try to pass on these charges to the airlines in higher fares. We regret that the government hasn't been brave and taken our advice, which was to approve 3 new runways, one each at Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted, because it's only by permitting competing runway developments that you force these airport monopolies to keep the costs down.
The government's directed to cap customer charges, though. Does that allay any fears?
They've never in their history of UK governments been able to cap charges. The Spanish-owned Heathrow monopoly goes into the regulator comes up with all the excuses, and then it simply gets passed on in the form of higher airfares. And it's inevitable. Bear in mind, these guys are going to spend £18 billion building a runway. Manchester built a second runway 10 years ago for less than £300 million. There is only one person who's going to pay for this, and that's the customer. And today's warm words from the government, if they really want to keep the costs of airports down, they should approve 3 runways and allow competition to keep runway costs down, in the same way that competition between Ryanair, EasyJet and British Airways has kept airfares down.
Are you really suggesting an extra runway at Gatwick and at Stansted?
Oh, I mean, look, it's going to be 10 years before this runway at Heathrow is even opened. And at that point in time, it'll be full before it even opens. So we may as well get planning now on additional runways in Gatwick and in Stansted, because London needs 3 additional runways if we're going to solve this runway crisis for the next 20, 50 years.
Pretty miserable for people living around there, though.
Oh, there's nobody who lives around Heathrow who bought their house without knowing that the airport was there. The airport's been there for 80 years. I mean, and, you know, we can't allow, you know, the future of London, the future of the UK economy to be held up by people who knew an airport was there when they bought their house beside Heathrow. And bear in mind, aircraft are getting quieter. They no longer fly through the night. There is significant restrictions on both the noise and on the operating times of aircraft. We've become a much better neighbour. But, you know, that argument would say you should build the next runway at Stansted. We don't argue that. We say London and the UK South East needs 3 more runways. The government needs to approve all 3 now, and let's get on with building them and allow competition to keep the costs of those runways down. Post-Brexit
and the vote to leave the European Union, you sound quite bullish about the British economy.
I'm not. I'm very worried about the British economy. The same people who were, you know, telling us a number of months ago that we could leave the European Union and Britain would stay in the single market have been shown to be not exactly telling the truth. But this is a runway expansion in the southeast. It's something that's been, you know, discussed and kicked down the road for some 20 years now. The fact is, all 3 main London runways, Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted, are full at peak times, and yet that congestion will continue to build until there's some more runway infrastructure. And even with today's decision, we won't see another runway in the southeast for at least 10 years. We can't delay this kind of infrastructure development if we want to keep London at the forefront of European commercial life and tourism, and keep the British economy going. And the British economy needs this infrastructure if it's going to survive in a post-Brexit environment.
Other airlines today have expressed positive views about this. Willie Walsh, it's his birthday today, by the way. I don't know if you want to say happy birthday to him. But he says this is a good move.
Well, he says it's a good move as long as he doesn't have to pay higher fees. So Willie thinks it's a good move as long as somebody else pays for the runway. And it is absolutely inevitable. I've heard the boss of Heathrow warbling on about this will be paid for by private sector. It won't. It'll only be paid for by the private sector if the private sector is allowed to bill it back to the airlines and consumers. So ask Willie, is he happy to pay for the 18 billion additional runway? And I think you'll get a different answer. I heard from EasyJet talking about, you know, somehow Heathrow spending 18 billion is mythically going to bring down airfares. It isn't. It's going to drive up airfares. And unless we have competing airports and competing new runways, you're not going to deliver consumers a better deal, because airport costs and airfares are going to rise strongly.
Michael O'Leary, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much.